Today we're going to be making one of these, a beautiful dual passport wallet. That's like hand stitched. We're not actually going to make one of these, we're going to make this one because I've already made it. Hello, my name's Patrick McCullough and welcome to Patrick's Leather Depot. Okay, the first thing you got to do is to print out the pattern, link below at etsy.com. Print it out on 210-gram paper if possible, and cut it out with scissors or a knife. Then you're going to place that onto your leather. I use a 1.2 mil leather for this project, and you score around it with your scratch awl. Make sure and hold it nice and tight while you're doing this. I tend to cut out a complete rectangle without rounding the corners for both parts A and part B. Remember, you must cut out the center of part B. Be very careful when you're doing this that you don't move the piece of paper. It would be a good idea to put a weight on it. Parts C and D are identical to the last two parts you're going to cut. Try and keep your knife as close to 90 degrees as possible rather than an angle in or an angle out. Then you will dye all the pieces to your favorite color. There are plenty of videos on YouTube to show you how to dye your leather. I just use a water-based stain. Part C and D should fit onto part B like so. So your leather's been dyed. Now you're going to mark off your stitching lines on part C. Just use your scratch awl to make the points necessary. Then you're going to burnish all the edges of your inside parts. That's B, C and D. I use water first to burnish and then I cover it with toconol. The edges should come up nice and shiny like this. Next you're going to glue part C and D to part B. I use contact cement for this, although you can use just a white glue. Before you do it, make sure and sandpaper down the edges of part B so you get a good grip. After it is glued, you are going to mark off your stitching lines on part C. Remember the dots we made earlier? We join the lines with a ruler. Next, punch out the holes along your stitch lines. I use a 6-hole punch and I work my way down both lines. It should look like this after the holes are punched. Now we cross stitch. I use a 1 mil yellow thread, wax thread, polyester thread. Remember when you're doing this to always go in the same direction. In my case I go from left to right and up through, and then right to left and up through. Continue until the whole thing is stitched right to the end. Make sure and pull it tight. Tie off the knot on the inside of the wallet. You can snip this off and then burn the ends back with a lighter. This won't be seen. After the cross stitching, it should look like this. Now we're going to glue the inside lining to part A. I use a white glue for this, spread over the whole surface. The assembly of part C, D and B is now going to be glued on top. Again, we use contact cement for this. It's very important that you do this very slowly so that it goes on straight. I now tap down all the edges to make sure they're secure, and then I trim them all off with a knife and cut the corners. I use a coin to do this. I then stain, bevel and drop in a stitching line and punch the holes that I'm going to use to hold the whole thing together. Next, it's time to saddle stitch the whole thing together. There are plenty of videos on YouTube as to how to saddle stitch. I'm not particularly good at it, but it's not as slow as you may think. It's important to remember to use 4.5 times the length of thread as to the distance you're going to stitch. Otherwise you have to make a join in the middle, which is not good. Now I started stitching just inside part C, so I finished there as well, and the last 2 pieces of thread were able to come up through the inside of the wallet. After that, again, I burnished the edges using water and tokonol. As you can see, they come up beautifully. Tokonol is an amazing product. If you haven't got it, you should try and get some. If you haven't got tokonol, you can use beeswax for burnishing as well, or any other product. Now I give the whole thing a coat of my own wax. It's a mixture of coconut oil, olive oil and beeswax that I boil up and make my own little tin. Make it reasonably soft consistency, but it gives a beautiful finish to it. And I rub that over the whole wallet, inside and out. Then I give it a coat of Angela's satin finisher, let that dry and give it one more coat of the beeswax, and it's all done. There you have it, the finished passport wallet. Holds 2 passports, some cards and boarding passes, etc. Well, that's it folks. I hope you enjoyed looking at the video. Please subscribe to the channel by hitting the subscribe button up here, and enjoy the rest of your day. You can download the plans at st.com. Hope to see you again. Cheers.